All right, XRP, XCN, and Quant set to implode? Well, let's talk about it. This is NC Hammer Crypto. My name is Neil. Talk about technical analysis, and let's go. So we're looking at Bitcoin. Some of you may be asking, Neil, why do you only show us Fibonacci retracement and trend lines? Well, it seems to be extremely effective for my form of trading, scalp trading as well. There are other things like Bollinger Bands and I'm using CM Guppy, but what works best for me visually is CM Guppy, RSI, and Fibonacci retracement. It tends to be pretty profitable when you see the movements that can be happening. We're looking at Quant. It's trying to break this high right here that happened back in May 29th and 30th. It's holding barely, but when we zoom over to Bitcoin, right over here, we see that Bitcoin is actually still holding the support on this upward trend line, this black trend line right here. If it does hold that and starts to push upwards, we are going to see a push on Quant as well as a bunch of the other cryptos. However, me personally, I think looking at this on the daily, I think we are going to see a major decrease in price here soon. A little bit of consolidation as we see with these ghost candles, and then a push back up starting the bull market here in June, maybe a little bit later, but Bitcoin I think is going to be crashing a little bit, giving us a better opportunity to buy these other coins. Looking at Bitcoin's position and what we saw with Prime. Prime had that hard line as well. When we're looking at the 4-hour, we talked about this just the other day. It had that push up here, and then once it broke that trend line, it had a decrease in price consistently for a couple weeks now, I believe. Looking at Doge, Doge is trying to hold a little bit of support in this fair value gap right above the inverse head and shoulders that it took off from. However, it all really depends on Bitcoin. So we want to see, me personally, see Bitcoin decrease in price so we can buy these coins a little bit cheaper. And then when Bitcoin does decrease, we can start investing a little bit more. BNT has actually been holding pretty nicely above the 0.6495 or 63, area. Had some nice support there. However, it is in a downtrend currently. It is above the 200 EMA. The volume is decreasing. So not a whole bunch to look at here. We mainly want to see it break this downward trend line before investing more into BNT. None of that is financial advice. LCX still in consolidation, but building a little bit more support. We could move this trend line down like this and see that it could be forming a little bit of support in this area. Me personally, I'm still waiting to see some sort of confirmation, potentially moving over this 200 EMA to start investing into LCX. XYO, consolidation, fair value gap. This would be an inverse head and shoulders right here. I can print that out for you real quick. Get rid of the magnet. Say here's the left shoulder. Here's the head. Gotta love head. Here's the right shoulder. And then it took off all the way up to 0.02 cents. But it is retracing back down into these two yellow lines, which would be somewhat a fair value gap. We do want to see some support here. You can see that this black trend line as well as the other black trend line right here would be a downward wedge, which is similar actually to what XCN is doing. This chart is very convoluted on my chart that I have written here. But for example, this is a wedge that is forming as well. It's holding above the 200 EMA. If it breaks below that 200 EMA, it's a little bit more dangerous. When Bitcoin does drop, which I believe it will, I believe we are going to test a little bit lower, potentially around the 0.01, have a little consolidation, then push back up towards this downward trend line and start moving back up towards the 3 cent mark. Currently waiting to enter in on XCN, kind of want to see it test this as support. But overall, I believe XCN and the rest of the altcoin market will be going up after this healthy pullback that is necessary for Bitcoin. I always try and keep the 200 EMA close, as the market likes to keep that close. This 200 EMA is pretty far down, and you see that back here when we pushed way away from the 200 EMA, this blue line, it had that little bit of consolidation, retest, had the double top form right here. If you're unsure what a double top is, I will paint it for you real quick. Here's my paintbrush. This right here would be one top. This right here would be the other top. And with those two tops, it was not able to break the 108. And it actually pushed back down towards the $73,000 mark, which was actually, it tested the 200 EMA, came back underneath the 200 EMA, tested the 200 EMA as a rejection, pushed down, got support off that 73. And then once it popped over that 200 EMA, you see right here around April 19th, it had that push upwards. So with the double top that was happening back here, we did test a little bit higher, but we did not hold over that 108. It had a little bit of rejection, being around 112 or 111 being the new all-time high. However, I believe we are going to see even higher, even 120 and higher than that for Bitcoin. But at the moment, I believe we are going to see a little bit of rejection because we need to come back down and have a healthy market retrace, potentially around this 0.618, this orange box right here. But that's a little far. It's 90,000. I think we're going to see somewhere in the 97,000 for retracement consolidation. And then that 200 EMA will actually push Bitcoin into a new all-time high. Another one I was looking at was Compound. Compound had that rejection off the 200 EMA, but a very nice high volume down here, as you can see. And what I want to bring in is the RSI, Relative Strength Index, for this. For some reason, since I have so many charts, it doubles down on RSI whenever I remove this CM Guppy. But the RSI is actually right at the 50% mark. Depending on what Bitcoin does, I don't think we're going to see a lower point than this upward trend line right here. I think we may get a little bit of support around the 40, and we may get a retest around the 200 EMA, but when it breaks that 200 EMA, Compound has very high potential to increase in price. As you see, the all-time high is way up here around $915, and it is currently at $43. A very low price point for Compound. I believe its absolute low would be around 24. So 50% potential decrease. However, the potential increase is rough estimate, say from here to here, 2,413% potential increase with a 50% decrease from where we are currently at. I believe Compound is something you should definitely be looking into, as well as Torn and White Rock. White Rock looks very nice as well. Torn still building a nice consolidation support over the 200 EMA. Volume is staying similar. You could consider this to be, this to be a double top right here. These being the two double tops. And with those, it had that rejection and pushed downwards back into the CM Guppy. However, I believe this may not even go below the 200 EMA, which is $7. We had an amazing entry at $7.50. We are not exiting that, and as you see, we are building a little bit of support for the Torn or Tornado coin. Remove those double tops. Looking at GRT. GRT is trying to build support off of this line. I believe it's going to be forming an inverse head and shoulders as well right here, pushing up and then retesting off the 0.1 before breaking this black trend line, which is something that is very important to break to start pushing upwards to this next downward trend line. That is a lot of potential movement from where we are currently at. That's around 140% increase if it breaks that first black trend line, being this right there. Now White Rock also doing its decrease like I expected. We had that major pump, and I said we would be having a retrace. Again, RSI is not on here, but we could do a quick Fibonacci retracement from the bottom right here to the top, and it is exactly at the 0.618 retracement. We could see a little bit lower into these blue CM Guppy right here, being the 0.786. before it starts pushing back upwards. So I'm personally not investing in the White Rock at the moment, but it is very nice buy as it is BlackRock's cryptocurrency, and BlackRock owns everything. Inverse head and shoulders clearly starting to form with XRP. If Bitcoin pushes down, we may see a little bit lower low, but it is holding above the 200 EMA. This is definitely a dollar cost average coin. Keep investing into XRP, not financial advice, but it will do a very nice pump this year. If not in June, July, then November is actually what I am waiting for XRP. Fetch is doing something similar to what we saw with Prime and what we are seeing with Bitcoin. We see the push up here, this being a left shoulder, head, right shoulder, and I believe we're going to come back down, touch this line, potentially break it, move back down to 0.69 is a possibility. If not, we are going to be pushing up to the 200 EMA. If Bitcoin pushes up, and you say, Neil, that covers all bases. Yes, you just have to keep an eye out. It's 50% up, 50% no. But consolidation at the moment, a little bit of rejection, but indecision with this specific wick on the daily for Fetch. And last few, I'll do XLM as well, but H-bar, something to keep in mind. H-bar is testing its support. If we take a line right here and we move, this is our trend line. We do want to see support on that trend line, but it all really depends on Bitcoin. We are also underneath the 200 EMA, so I'm not investing in an H-bar at the moment. I always like to see it push over that 200 EMA. As you see, when it pushed over right here, major pump. So I believe when we see a push over that 200 EMA, we are going to see a nice pump with H-bar. And I guess lastly, XLM. XLM isn't looking the best. It's underneath the 200 EMA, low volume, downward trend, not even a downward wedge. But we could see a little bit of support. But I doubt it. I really think Bitcoin is going to be dropping, bringing the altcoins down with it for a little bit of consolidation, a better opportunity to buy, and overall wait for XCN to test that lower wedge line and the 200 EMA. So I believe we are going to see a little bit of area in the 0.013 for XCN before its major bull run along with the rest of the market. That's it for this one. I always leave the reference links below. Grass, if you want free airdrop money, they're dropping free money this next month. You just have to download the app. It doesn't take any of your information, and you get points which transfer into tokens, and the token is worth, I believe, $1.20 right now, maybe $2, but free money from Grass. Also, there's Coinbase, which is doing free airdrops just for learning about tokens. I've got a couple myself just for having a Coinbase, and then MEXC has the lowest trading fee platform of any trading platform. That's it for today. Like and subscribe if you want, and I will see you guys on the next one.